Welcome back, and so far we have discussed about the data provider in TestNG, and we also have seen that how we can fetch data from the Excel sheet and we can provide the data to the test cases using the data provider. Today we are going to talk about the groups in the TestNG. So before starting with the groups, let me have a discussion on the groups first. Okay, so what is meant by groups? So far we are designing the test methods by providing the @test annotation to them, and there may be a situation that we may have different classes for different functionalities available on the web page or the application under test. Okay, so for each and inside each and every different class we may have a finite number of test cases written for that particular functionality, and we can have obviously multiple classes in which the test cases will be there. Okay, now if you look at this structure, this monolithic structure, you will find that the test cases are getting increased day by day, and they are getting added up day by day by the test cases. Let us imagine the scenario where you are working in a team where you are working with close to 5 members in an automation testing team, and everyone in your team is writing the automation test scripts or maybe test cases. Okay, in this case what will happen is at some or the other day your test cases are going to increase numerously, and it will become difficult to manage them. It will become difficult to identify which test cases to execute and which test cases should not be executed. Let's say that your manager is asking to execute you only regression test cases. Okay, and let's say you have 10 to 15 classes right now with you, and every class is having almost 50 test cases. So if we imagine there are 10 classes and 50 test cases in each class, then obviously we are having 500 test cases. Now it will become really difficult and annoying for us to identify that which test cases belongs to regression. So you have to go through manually through all the classes that you have, and you have to identify that which test cases should be belong to regression and which should not. So it will really become difficult for you to execute only regression test cases and exclude all other test cases. Okay, so to solve this problem or to overcome this problem, TestNG has provided groups. Okay, where we can tag one or more test cases to some particular group. Now what is meant by group? Okay, so let us have a discussion on it first. So I have this PPT over here created, so let's play this one. Sorry. Okay, groups in TestNG. Now what is meant by groups in TestNG? So TestNG allows you to perform sophisticated grouping of the test methods. So let's say we have 10 classes, each class is having 50 test cases. Now we can decide that this particular test case belongs to which group. Okay, so this kind of logical grouping we can, that is user or programmer can decide, and he can partition the entire test cases in different groups. Okay, groups can logically divide your entire set of test cases into user defined groups. Okay, so every group will have certain name, and that name will be a user defined one and not defined by the TestNG. So user has a choice to give any name to your group. Okay, for example, I want to give regression as a name to my group, I can give. If I want to give testing shastra as a group name, I can give to the test cases. So whatever test cases I am assigning to that particular group can be identified by that group name. Okay, and the test case will belong to that group only, and it will be automatically identified by the TestNG. Okay, Now let us see how we can actually tag our test case to groups. Okay, so for that, in the @test annotation, we have a parameter called as groups. Inside groups, over here you can see, inside groups, what we can do is, uh, okay, so let me quickly, okay, inside groups, what we can do is, we can mention that this test case, which test case? Test method 1, this test case belongs to function test as well as check-in test. So one test case can belong to one or more groups. Okay, one test case can belong to one or more groups by means of this groups parameter of @test annotation. So this parameter is available for @test annotation only, not for other annotations like before test, after test, and so on. Okay, so this parameter is available for @test annotation, in front of which in curly brackets we can mention the groups, number of groups to which this test case may belong. Okay, now remember the groups is a plural over here. Okay, and whatever plurals are there in the TestNG, you should mention them inside curly brackets only. Okay, inside curly brackets we can mention multiple values of them. Okay, so let me clear all the drinks. Perfect. Next we have is, what we have done is we have tagged our test cases to some or other groups. Okay, now it's time to invoke or execute the groups of our choice only. So let's say I want to execute test cases under group check-in test, for example. So if I want to execute only test cases which fall under the category of the groups of check-in test, so how I can do that? So for that, I need to go to the testng.xml file. Inside that testng.xml file, I need to write the groups tag. Okay, groups tag is there in the testng.xml. Under that groups tag, I need to mention run. Okay, run tag, and under run tag I need to include the group that I want to execute. So let's say I want to execute functional test. This is the group that I want to execute. So I need to include it inside testng.xml. Okay, this is the first requirement. Okay, second requirement is the class which has the test cases belonging to function test group should be included here in the classes. Okay, if you exclude the classes from here, then test cases from that class belonging to functional test group will not execute. Okay, let us see how it happens. So let me quickly open this over here. Okay, so let us see that what I want to say. Okay, so let's say in a previous session we have created these classes, class A, class B, and class C. These are the three classes that we have designed, and each class is having certain test methods in it. Okay, so let's say these are the simple test methods that we have. Simple test methods. So I'm removing these groups from here. Okay, these are the simple test methods here, M1 and M2. Okay, now let me open the class B. Okay, yeah, class B is here, and this class B is having M1, M2, M3, M4, and M5. These are the test cases. Okay, perfect. Okay, and we have a class C also here, and let us remove the previously tagged groups. Okay, perfect. These are the simple test cases that we have, right? Now what we need to do is we need to tag our test cases to some or the other groups. So let's say I want to create two groups over here. Groups is equals to, in the curly brackets, let's say regression. So this is the syntax. Okay, you should not miss the curly brackets, you should not miss the double quotes and everything. So my test case M1 belongs to regression group. Okay, and then this test case belongs to maybe sanity group. Okay, now test case M1 belongs to regression group, test case M2 belongs to sanity group. Now let's say how we can invoke our test cases. So let's try to run only regression test cases from the TestNG.xml. Okay, so for that what we need to do is we need to go over here in the TestNG.xml file. Okay, and we have to mention the groups tag over here. Sorry. So where we can mention the groups tag. So under suit tag, immediately after the suit tag, we can mention the groups. Okay, or immediately after the test tag, we can mention groups. Okay, now what is the difference between them? So if you write groups under the suit tag, then it will be applicable for the entire test present inside the suit.xml, that is testng.xml. And if you write it under the test tag, then these groups will be applicable to this test only, that is module A. Okay, and we have seen that one testng.xml file can have multiple test tags. Okay, so let's say I want to include groups for this test only. Okay, now let's write down the run. Inside run, what we need to add is include. Okay, include, and we have to provide the name of group that we want to include, that is regression. Okay, regression, that's it. But remember, we also have to mention the class name which has the test cases belonging to regression group. Okay, that is class A. So we have mentioned the class A over here, and let's execute this. Now test cases belonging to regression group from class A will only be executed. Okay, let's see how. Sorry, that's it. Can you see only one test case is executed over here? Failure is 1. Okay, and skips are 0. So which one is the test case? M1 of class A. This is the test case which is executed. Now can you see M1 test case belongs to regression group. But if you don't mention the class name over here, then obviously no test case will be executed. Why? Because there is no regression group test case in the class B. Okay, class B have simple test cases. Yep, can you see total test run 0, failure 0, and skips 0. So obviously what TestNG is trying to do is, TestNG is trying to execute this test, okay, which has this class, and it will only run the groups included over here in the include tag. Okay, it will only execute those test cases which are belonging to the regression group. That's it, pretty easy. Okay, so there are two rules. First one is we need to include the group that we want to execute. Second is we want to include the class name in which our test cases reside. Okay, so let's say class A is having some test cases belonging to regression group. Now there may be a case that class B will also have certain test cases belonging to regression groups. Regression, okay, and then maybe groups equals to smoke, and M3 test case belongs to groups sanity, then groups belongs to maybe testing Shastra, but in double quotes. Okay, perfect. Now M5 belongs to again testing Shastra. Okay, and M6 belongs to no group. Okay, that's it. So we are going to leave this test case as is. Now let's try to include the class B also. Class and class B. That's it. Now regression test cases, okay, test cases belonging to regression group from class A and class B will be executed. Let's have a look at them. Yes, can you see test run 2 test cases have been executed. One is failure, M1 of A and M1 of B. Why? Because class B is having only 2 test cases belonging to, sorry, class B is having only 1 test case belonging to the regression group. Okay, that's pretty easy and simple. Okay, so this is how we can group the test case into a logical user defined groups. Now, one test case can be tagged to one or more groups. So how we can do that? Let's say. So here in front of the group, we need to mention some another group, maybe smoke. Now test case M1 belongs to regression group as well as smoke group. Okay, so this is how we can tag one test case to more than one groups. So let's say this M1 test case will be identified by regression as well as by smoke. So if I execute the smoke group only from class A and class B, so let's say what happens. So no test case from class A will be executed. Why? Because in class A there is no test case belonging to the smoke group. But in class B we have 2 test cases, M1 and M2, belonging to the smoke group, and that is what executed. So let me show you the console. This is the console. Can you see M1 of B and M2 of B? So M1 and M2 of class B have been executed. So this is how we can tag one test case to more than one groups. Okay, that's pretty easy. So this is how we can invoke the groups of our choice. Now there is one more thing over here, that we can create the groups by means of regular expression also. Okay, so what is the regular expression that we can write? So you guys might know about the regular expression and patterns, so I'm not going to much deep into it, but in a general terms what I would say is regular expression will try to find out certain patterns, and if the pattern matches, then the test case will be executed. So let's say that I have these 2 test cases, but I want to, and both of these belongs to regression. Okay, both test cases belongs to regression, but I want to execute first test case on Windows operating system only. So how I'm going to write it? Windows dot regression. Okay, and let's say second test case I want to execute on Linux only. So whenever I will perform the execution operation on the Linux, then M2 method should execute it. Whenever I will perform execution operation on Windows, then regression test cases should execute it. Okay, did you get this point? That is pretty easy. Now let's see how we can actually invoke the test cases based on the regular expression. So for that, what we can do is we can go to the testng.xml file, and here we need to write the regular expression. Okay, so how we can write? Yes, on basis of pattern matching. Okay, perfect. Now let's say I want to execute the test cases for Windows operating system only. So what I'm going to do over here is Windows dot asterisk. So what is the meaning of dot asterisk in terms of pattern matching is Dot means whatever appearing after dot, okay, all things will be compared over here. So whatever appearing after Windows will be executed. So here test case M1 will be executed only. Can you see M1 test case is only executed? Why? Because this pattern matches with only M1 test case of class A. In class B, we don't have anything like Windows. So let's say I want to execute this M2 test case on the Windows dot. Okay, and this one is on the Linux dot. That's it. So if I try to execute it one more time, yeah, can you see? Two test cases have been executed, M1 of A and M2 of B. Why? Because A and B both have the test cases having this regular expression pattern matched. Okay, so this is how we can execute the test cases by means of the regular expression also. Okay, now let's move ahead. And this is how we can invoke the groups by means of regular expression. Now let us talk about the partial groups. Now what is meant by partial groups? So in a simple sense, we have talked about the @test annotation of TestNG here before also. And we have discussed that @test annotation is the class level annotation. Okay, so what happens over here is, if we give this @test annotation on the class, then all test cases present inside class, all methods, okay, all methods present inside class will be considered as test cases. Okay, will be considered as test cases. Okay, and if I give the groups parameter over here at the class level itself, then what will happen is, now this M1 and M2 methods will belong to regression group by default. Why? Because @test have been written at the class level itself. So we can mention the groups at the class level also by means of @test annotation. Okay. So let's try to execute only regression test cases so that you will understand. Now I want to execute regression group test cases from class A and class B. Yeah, can you see the console? M1 of A, M2 of A, and M1 of B have been executed. Why? Because M1 belongs to regression, M2 belongs to regression, and from class B, M1 belongs to regression again. Okay, got it? So it is pretty simple, and this is called as the partial groups. Okay, now one more thing I want to mention over here is, I can mention explicitly @test tag for this M1 method over here, and I also can give the name groups, parameter groups to the M1 method separately, and let's say functional test. Now this M1 method belongs to functional test and partially belongs to regression test also. So M1 test here belongs to functional test as well as the regression test, whereas M2 only belongs to the regression test. So this is what is meant by partial groups. Okay, so you guys might have understood or might have got the idea of groups through this entire session. Now let me show you that how you can actually distinguish between the TestNG.xml files. So what we can do is, we can have multiple TestNG.xml files for one project. So it is recommended to create different TestNG.xml files for different groups. Okay, so let's say I want to create I want to execute only regression groups. So for that, it is recommended to copy this XML file previously generated and click on the right click on the group and right click on the project and paste it. So I'm not seeing. Okay, it is there. Now it will ask you to give the name to this XML file. So no matter what name you give to your TestNG file. So let's say maybe testing Shastra is the name that I'm giving to this testng.xml file. Created. That's it. Now let's open this file. So this is the file that we have generated. Now include all the classes which has test cases belonging to the regression group. Okay, so whatever classes you have, you should mention all of them over here. So we have 3 classes up here. Okay, class C is also there, and class C test cases doesn't belongs to any group. So let me write a class level annotation, that is @test, and groups is equals to regression. Perfect. Now all of the test cases present inside class C belongs to the regression test group. Okay. Now let's execute this one, and you will see that regression test cases from class A, class B, and class C will only execute it. Okay, will only be executed. Can you see M1, M2, M1 of B and M1 to M6 of C, all test cases have been executed. So there are test cases which are executed, and all of the test cases were belonging to the regression group. So it is recommended to create different XML files for the different groups, so that whenever in future a requirement of executing only regression test cases arises, then you don't have to change your a single testng.xml file. So you can just go on the testng.xml file which you are interested in and just simply run it. Okay, so this is how you should create different XML files, and through these XML files you have to execute the groups of your choice. Okay, this is pretty simple. So how many testng.xml files you can create? There is no limit. So as many testng.xml files you want to create as you can. Okay, there is no limit at all that you need to create this many only or that many only. So internally, how TestNG invokes this testng.xml file and how it works on this testng.xml file. So in short, I would like to say here is this testng.xml file will be considered as a configuration file for the TestNG, and TestNG itself in the background uses reflection API of Java, core Java. Okay, so we are going to study about this reflection API in our coming sessions. Okay, so in simple words, reflection API is used by the TestNG to execute this XML file, and this file will be considered as a configuration file. So it will read the tags and data present inside the tags from this XML file, and it will try to execute the entire testng.xml file. So this is all about the groups till now. So do you guys have any questions in it? Okay, guys, now we have seen that we can include the groups, how we can include the group. Okay, but there may be a situation that you want to execute all test cases of class A except regression test cases. Okay, you want to execute all test cases of class A except regression. So how you can do that? So in place of include tag, what you need to mention is exclude tag. Exclude tag. So inside this name we need to provide the name, and that is regression. Now test cases from class A and class B and class C will be executed, but only those test cases which doesn't belongs to regression group. Okay, only those test cases will be executed over here. So let me show you how we can do that. That's it. So these are the test cases from class B, okay, which doesn't belongs to the regression. We have seen that all test cases from class C are belonging to the regression. That is why none of the test case of class C is executed. Okay, but from class B, there are certain test cases which doesn't belongs to regression, like M2, M3, M4, M5, and M6. So these are the test cases which doesn't belongs to the regression. So all of these methods have been executed over here. So this is how we can exclude the group also from the testng.xml file. So it is not recommended that you should have only one testng.xml file, first thing. Next thing is, it is not recommended, sorry, it is not compulsory to have your testng.xml file's name as a testng.xml itself. Okay, you can give any name to your testng.xml. Okay, .xml files are executable by the testng itself. That is why we can see the option over here in the run as testng suite. Okay, this is the option we can see because of the testng plugin available for the Eclipse. Okay, so this is pretty much it about the groups.